Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and people of all identities. I have to get used to just saying that kind of stuff. And yeah, it'll just take some time. Either way is okay. I love everybody. I want to personally thank you all for the continuous support. And welcome back to the spiritual experience. So, what I was also thinking of doing was making some episodes with my interpretations and my application of the steps. I think I did, I covered some of the inventory stuff in our review with Ben and after that episode. So if you haven't heard that, then you can go back and listen to it. And I'll give you some insight. But my favorite, they're all the steps are my favorite, and the steps are designed for living. That's what they say, but the truth is that, they mean different things to different people at different times, and, I have to stop saying, I wrote I wrote a little post-it because I say it all the time. It's like old school, like I was talking about when I was on Wall Street. Anyway, okay, step 2. What is step 2? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be reading a synopsis of it out of the 12 and 12, which is the 12 steps and 12 traditions. It's a book in Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous and all the other 12-step programs. And it kind of gives you a breakdown of, the steps, and then maybe, some applications on how to use them in your life. If stop saying, and I'm not even going to start over. I'm just going to keep going. So there's that. Keep it 100. So, yes, what they do is it's a synopsis of what Bill and the other people who contributed to these steps have as far as how to use them. Now, typically, when you go to a step meeting, they will read out of the 12 and 12, and then what they'll do is they will, go around the room and share. Everybody shares like a little bit, 5 or 10 minutes, based on some of the things that they read and that kind of stuff. So, it's good to get everybody's perspective on the step work. You can't just live and die by what your sponsor says, because that's a very stupid way to stay sober, and I'm going to keep saying that word until it's over, I guess. So here we go. I'll do a little bit of reading and give some feedback on what I'm reading. It's not that long, maybe a couple of pages. And here we go. Okay, step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. The moment they read step 2, most AA newcomers are confronted with a dilemma, sometimes a serious one. How often have we heard them cry out, "Look at what you people have done to us. You have convinced us that we are alcoholics and that our lives have become unmanageable. Having reduced us to a state of absolute helplessness, you now declare that none but a higher power can remove our obsession. Some of us won't believe in God, others can't, and still others who do believe that God exists have no faith whatsoever He will perform this miracle. Yes, you've got us over the barrel all right, but where do we go from here?" Let's look first at the case of the one who says he won't believe, the belligerent one. He's in a state of mind which can be described only as savage. It means he's still completely defiant. He's he's a savage. He's not drinking, he's going to meetings. He don't want nothing to do with God. His whole philosophy of life, in which he's so glorified, is threatened. It's bad enough he thinks that to admit alcohol has him down for keeps, but now Still smarting from that admission, he is faced with something really impossible. How he does cherish the thought that man, risen so majestically from a single cell in the primordial ooze, shout out to the Ninja Turtles, is the spearhead of evolution and therefore the only God that his universe knows. Must he renounce all of this to save himself? It's funny because in these first two paragraphs, which is pretty strange, that in the second paragraph that I read, the word God is with the lowercase g, which I personally find offensive if I'm going to be subscribing to that stuff. But yes, no, I do. Yeah, God is a name. It's not a word. And that's the way that I look at it. But either way, here is somebody that is completely defiant as far as God is concerned. We don't know why he is the way he is, or she is the way she is, or they are the way they are, but that's how they are. They know that they can't drink. They have an idea that they're alcoholic, that they can't drink safely. Their life is unmanageable, which is another way of saying that it's unbearable and they can't continue on, and they're lost enough that they find themselves in a church basement putting $1 in the basket trying to get a little bit of relief from themselves. And they're asking for help, which I understand. And so they're on their way, to be honest. They're on their way. But this is, it's pretty funny, the way that they describe this stuff. Bill, who wrote these little excerpts, he's a very super inclusive kind of guy in the way that he writes, that nobody's really going to be able to wiggle off the hook here as far as the higher power stuff and the God stuff. And as we read further down the page, we will see how that is going to play out. So let's keep going. At this juncture, his AA sponsor usually laughs. Ha ha ha. This, a newcomer thinks, is just about the last straw. This is the beginning of the end, and so it is. The beginning of the end of his old life and the beginning of his emergence into a new one. His sponsor probably says, take it easy. The hoop you have to jump through is a lot wider than you think, and I found it so. And so did a friend of mine who was one-time vice president of the American Atheist Society, but he got through with room to spare. Now, I'm going to pause again here because this is the part of the literature that I absolutely hate and I do not believe. And I think it's my opinion, and I'm speculating here 100%, that they just threw that he was the vice president of the American Atheist Society. I believe that's, like Khabib says, number one bullshit. 100%. I don't believe that for any, at all, period. You'll never convince me that that was the case, that he was friends with that. That doesn't exist to me. But the take it easy part is understandable. When we're trying to explain to somebody that, when it comes to higher power, really what you're looking for is relief. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for relief, and you're looking for a way to just take a deep breath. Now, that higher power can come in a lot of different forms. It can be whatever, but it has to not be you. Like, you can't have all the answers. You can't have, you just can't. So let's continue on. Well, the newcomer says, I know you're telling me the truth. It's no doubt a fact that AA is full of people who once believed as I do, but just how in these circumstances does a fellow take it easy? That's what I want to know. That, agrees the sponsor, is a very good question indeed. I think I can tell you exactly how to relax. You won't have to work at it very hard either. Listen, if you will, to these three statements. First, this is very important to all you haters out there. First, Alcoholics Anonymous does not demand that you believe anything. All of the 12 steps are but suggestions. Second, to get sober and to stay sober, you don't have to swallow all of step 2 right now. Looking back, I found that I piecemealed it myself. I took it piecemeal myself. Third, all you really need is a truly open mind. To resign from the debating society and to quit bothering yourself with such deep questions as whether it was the hen or the egg that came first. Again, I say all you need is an open mind. And that's really where you can turn a table or turn a corner when it comes to believing in a higher power. Like, that's like, it's a relationship that is developed over time. And for me, it just really boiled down to, is it possible? And these are the words, the three most important words, I think, for me in like the English language. Besides, no, that's it. Is it possible? Like, is it possible that I don't have all the information? Is it possible that I need some help? Is it possible that nobody's trying to hurt me? Is it possible that I am wrong? Is it possible that I am right? And I think that's where my higher power lives. My higher power lives in that possibility. And it comes from inside me, it comes from outside me. A lot of times I listen to my inner voice. The one that's like in my gut that gives me like feelings that I am either doing the right thing, doing the wrong thing, trying to help me find peace. So let's keep going. The sponsor continues, take, for example, my own case. I had a scientific schooling, so naturally I respected, venerated, I don't know what that word means, even worshipped science. As a matter of fact, I still do, all except the worship part. Time after time, my instructors held up to me the basic principle of all scientific progress. Search and research again and again, always with an open mind. When I first looked at AA, my reaction was just like yours. This AA business, I thought, was totally unscientific. I can't swallow. I simply won't consider such nonsense. Then I woke up. I had to admit that AA showed results, prodigious results. And this is true. If you come into the rooms and you mean business, AA is really going to work for you. I promise. Oof, it really is. Okay, I saw that my attitude regarding these had been anything but scientific. It wasn't AA that had the closed mind. It was me. The minute I stopped arguing, I could begin to see and feel right there. Step 2, gently and very gradually began to infiltrate my life. I can't say upon what occasion or upon what day I came to believe in a power greater than myself, but I certainly have that belief now. To acquire it, I only had to stop fighting and practice the rest of the AA's program as enthusiastically as I could. It's a very powerful statement that the rest of the program, which involves inventory, like I always talk about, self-analysis, it involves taking actions, doing the right thing, helping others, all of those things. That's what they're talking about. It just says, okay, you don't have to sit here and wait for years and years to find the higher power or to find that relief. You will find it by taking these other actions, and then it will come to you a little bit at a time. So in order to move on, really, you just have to ask yourself about the possibility and whether or not this is going to work for you. Hopefully it will. I would guarantee somebody else's life on it. I really think AA works 100%. I just think that people themselves fail. But I think the program is actually pretty perfect, as close as perfect as it could be. Okay, let's continue on. This is only one man's opinion based on his own experience. Of course, I must quickly assure you that AAs tread innumerable paths in their quest for faith. This is back now. Bill is talking. If you don't care for the one I've suggested, you'll be sure to discover one that suits only if you look and listen. Many a man like you has begun to solve the problem by method of substitution. You can, if you wish, make AA itself your higher power. Think about that. Make AA itself your higher power. A lot of people do that. Most people do that. They come into the rooms and they're like, okay, it's the people in the rooms. It's the energy. It's the AA itself is my higher power. And that's fine. You're allowed. You know, here's a very large group of people who have solved their alcohol problem. In this respect, there's certainly a power greater than you who have not even come close to a solution. There's a little dig right there. It's saying, listen, you couldn't do this on your own. With all of us together, you can do anything. So there is a power greater than yourself. It's a nice way to kind of flip the tables on somebody who doesn't believe in God or higher power, whatever you want to call it. Some people, they just don't like the word God. They're so offended by it. Like, Jesus Christ, bro, come on, man. It's just a word. No, I'm lying. What did I say? It was a name. It's a name to some people, but to people who don't believe, it's just a word. So if you don't believe that God exists in whatever form you don't believe in, it shouldn't bother you that somebody else does. That we just believe in hocus pocus, and you shouldn't be offended by it. Nobody is forcing anything upon you at all. Okay, let's continue on. Even this minimum faith will be enough. Because it says, surely you'll have faith in them. So even this minimum faith will be enough. You will find many members who have crossed the threshold just this way. All of them will tell you that once across, their faith broadened and deepened. Relieved of their alcohol obsession, their lives unaccountably transformed. They came to believe in a higher power, and most of them began to talk of God. Came to believe. Which means not at one time. It's not instantaneous. You just have to keep coming. You have to keep trying. And then eventually, by taking these actions, more will be revealed. Let's continue on. Consider next the plight of those who once had faith but have lost it. There will be those who have drifted into indifference, those filled with self-sufficiency who have cut themselves off, those who have become prejudiced against religion, and those who are downright defiant because God has failed to fulfill their demands. Whoosh, that's heavy stuff. Can AA experience tell all of these that they may still find a faith that works? Sometimes AA comes harder to those who have lost or rejected faith than those who never had faith at all, for they think that they have tried faith and found it wanting. That I understand. I've seen that so many times. Me personally, I had like a little bit of a belief in God, but not really. You know, I don't even know if something was out there when I was there at the time. In retrospect, of course, but you know, I'm definitely not one of these people who lost their faith. But there's plenty of people who, you know, they went to Catholic school, or they went to shul, or they went to religious training as a kid where the God was just like, you will do this or you will burn, or do not do that or you will burn. And I'm like, why is God so angry and punishing? Like, that's not love at all. And I find it hard to believe. Like that God, I don't believe in. It's okay if you do, but that God, I don't believe. If you don't do this, you'll go to hell. If you don't, you know, it's just so silly. And it's so crazy, because if he loves me, what the fuck is he threatening me for? You know, he made me this way. So what? So I can just obey? It's pretty silly. Yeah, that thing, the old white man in the beard in the sky, that's not it for the kid. I mean, I don't know what's there, but it's definitely not that. And it's definitely not along that vein of, if you don't do this, you're going to burn or whatever. You know, that's not it for me. So, where am I? Okay. So, let's keep going. They've tried the way of faith and the way of no faith. Since both ways have proved bitterly disappointing, they have concluded that there is no place whatever for them to go. The roadblocks of indifference, fancied self-sufficiency, prejudice, and defiance often prove more solid than formidable for these people than any erected by unconvinced agnostic or even militant atheists. Religion says the existence of God can be proved. The agnostic says it can't be proved. The atheist claims proof of non-existence of God. Obviously, the dilemma of the wanderer from faith is that of profound confusion. He thinks himself lost to the comfort of any conviction at all. He can't attain in even the small degree that the assurance of the believer, the agnostic, or the atheist. He is the bewildered one. Yeah, I guess the one that found that, that believes God turned his back on him or something like that. That God wouldn't meet his demands. Like, grant me my wishes. That's so crazy. That's the thing. Yeah, grant me my wishes. God, please do as I say. So any number of AAs can say to this drifter, yes, we were diverted from our childish faith too. The overconfidence of youth was too much for us. Of course, we were glad that a good home and religious training had given us certain values. We were still sure that we ought to be fairly honest, tolerant, and just, that we ought to be ambitious and hardworking. We became convinced that such simple rules of fair play and decency would be enough. It'd be nice if everybody played by those rules, but that's obviously not the case. As I'm going to continue on. As material success founded upon no more than these ordinary attributes began to come to us, we felt that we were winning at the game of life. This was exhilarating and it made us happy. Okay, here's somebody who I guess has all of those feelings and then they're having a little bit of success. Why should we be bothered with the theological abstractions and religious duties or with the state of our souls here or hereafter? The here and now was good enough for us. The will to win would carry us through. But then alcohol began to have its way with us. Finally, when all of our scorecards read 0, and when we saw that one more strike would put us out of the game forever, we had to look for our lost faith. It was in AA that we rediscovered it, and so can you. It's a pretty powerful paragraph. And I guess what they're talking about is people who are completely self-reliant and then find themselves whipped by the bottle or maybe by drugs or maybe by some other things, maybe by a partner. People are addicted to that kind of stuff too, where a partner become their higher power and they're not happy unless their partner's happy. All that codependent stuff, they're looking for that comfort. That's what they're looking for, And I identify 100%. So now, all right, I'm going to continue on. Onward. Now we come to another kind of problem, the intellectually self-sufficient man or woman. To these, many AAs can say, yes, we were like you, far too smart for our own good. We love to have people call us precocious. I don't know what that word means. We used our education to blow ourselves up into prideful balloons. Though we were careful to hide this from others, secretly we felt that we could float above the rest of the folks on our brain power alone. Sometimes that kind of stuff is really not so secret. I always thought that I was smarter than everybody. And I know a lot of people who believe that they're smarter than everybody. And it's normally the person doing all of the talking and all of the judgment and all of that loud stuff. Okay, I'm going to continue. Scientific progress told us there was nothing man couldn't do. Knowledge was all powerful. Intellect would conquer nature. Since we were brighter than most folks, so we thought, the spoils of victory would be ours for the thinking. The God of our intellect displaced the God of our fathers. But then John Barleycorn had other ideas. John Barleycorn must be, or I think I'm very sure that it's just the way that they describe alcohol. You know, I think it's like who knows what it is. Maybe it's a bottle of something. I'm going to look it up right now. This is my first pull that up Jamie moment. John Barley Corn. What the fuck is that? Hang on. Is a personification of barley and of the alcoholic beverages made from barley. John Barleycorn. Sounds like a very corny man. But anyway, he had his way with us. John Barleycorn, again, had other ideas. I'm going to continue. We who had won so handsomely in a walk turned into all-time losers. We saw that we had to reconsider or die. We found many in AA who once thought as we did. They helped us get down to our right size. By their example, they showed us that humility and intellect could be compatible, provided that we place humility first. When we began to do that, we received gifts of faith, a faith which works. This faith is for you too. So that's basically describing another person who is looking for help, and maybe they're wildly successful in all these other areas of their life, and they're still very uncomfortable, and they're suffering. They are suffering, man. And when it comes to recovery, there's a lot of wildly successful people that will tell you that the success did not make them happy. The money did not make them happy. The prestige and all of these things did not make them happy. They were still dead inside because the bottle was whipping them. The lifestyle was whipping them. They had to live like that in order to achieve those things. Who knows what they, if or how they could have done it without the booze and without all of those crutches. But, you know, there's a lot of people in recovery who are like that. Yeah. I had a little bit of success when I got here, and I was empty. That's how I knew it would stick, because there was no amount of money, no amount of outside influence that would give me the peace of mind that I was getting in AA. There's nothing anybody could offer me. What could they possibly, drugs, alcohol, women, money. I had all of those things, and I was a big fat zero. And that's the truth. So let's continue on. Another crowd of AA says, we are plumb disgusted with religion and all of its works. The Bible, we said, was full of nonsense. We could cite a chapter and verse, and we couldn't see the Beatitudes for the begats. These are people who are, they call them skeptics or whatever. There's always somebody. Here's the thing. I don't know if the stories in the Bible are true, if they're not. I'm a big alien Anunnaki guy, even though I'm a Jew. So maybe part of me believes I'm allowed to believe in all that stuff, because if there is a heaven, then I'm just going to get there anyway. Ha, ha, ha. But there's always people who it's in their personality, which he's talking about, is to just dissect everything when somebody is presenting them with any kind of information or anything like that. They're cynical. I think that's the right word. And all they're looking to do is separate themselves from perhaps help or relief or the other person or the information or whatever. They're just basically looking for ways to continue to feel sorry for themselves. That's really what it is at its very root core. They can sit there and they never have anything nice to say. They're always with, but what about this? But what about that? If you talk about Hillary Clinton, and my opinion is that she's a crazy person. If you spoke about her and you said, well, what about Hillary's emails? Somebody will respond, Trump said grab her by the blow, And there's always that. There's always, people feel, it's because they feel threatened. They feel threatened, and that's just like an example. And I think any person who's going to try and become president or any of this other stuff, and I don't want to dive into politics, but they're all crazy. They're all animals. And none of them are looking out for us. We all have to look out for each other. This is why I'm making this show, because we cannot rely on them to make decisions that will help us look out for each other. They don't want us to win. They want them to stay where they are. So, okay, enough of that. We found that many in AA who once thought as we did, they helped us get down to our right size. Okay, yeah, I'm back at it. By the example showed that humility has to come first, so they understand that. Humility has to come first. When we began to do that, we received the gift of faith. The faith which works as faith can work for you too. Okay, I just reread that, which was whatever. God wanted me to read it again. And it's true. It's true. The humility has to come first. Humility. Yeah, humility is a big thing. It's surrendering yourself to the situation. Asking yourself, can I be a better human here instead of the great I am? That's what humility is. How can I help? Okay, I'm going to continue on. Another crowd of AA says, we're plumb disgusted with religion. Okay, sorry I had lost my place. I'm rereading this again about the people who beef with the Bible. Okay, now I'm back in the right spot. In spots, its morality was impossibly good. In others, it seemed impossibly bad. But it was the morality of the religionists themselves that really got us down. Sure, people are going to say, look, the rabbis are touching the babies. The priests are touching the kids. So the whole institution is a big zero. That's what they're going to say. And the truth is that all of that is true, minus the big zero part. I mean, I don't know about giving all this money to church and to shul. They're not really socialist organizations that are distributing everything. You know, you see these preachers or whomever with their private jets. And look, I met a rabbi a few weeks ago that he was a retired rabbi. And I am counting his pockets. He lived in a mansion in Park Slope, and he was a retired rabbi. And I'm like, Jesus, how the hell did you get this thing? And when I mean a mansion, you know, he's like, oh, I'm a retired rabbi. And who knows, maybe he had a business or whatever, and that too. I don't know how much money they make. I don't know how much money they keep, but I don't know. So let's keep going. Yeah, we gloated over the hypocrisy, bigotry, there's a lot of that, and crushing self-righteousness that clung to so many believers, even in their Sunday best. Whoosh, that is a shot over the bow of people who are living right on Sunday and living like shit the rest of the week. And then they just go on Sunday and they wash themselves clean. That's funny. And when we see that, we just say, okay, this person is full of shit. So how can I believe anything that they say or anything that they follow? I'm going to continue on, how we love to shout the damaging fact that millions of good men of religion were still killing one another off in the name of God. Very true. This all meant that, of course, we had substituted negative for positive thinking. Nadoi. After we came to AA, we had to recognize that this trait had been an ego-feeding proposition. I'm going to read that again. After we came to AA, we had to recognize that this trait, the trait of substituting negative for positive thinking, not giving the church or any of these people a pass, but just that trait of substituting negative for positive thinking, it's an ego-feeding proposition. In belaboring the sins of some religious people, we could feel superior to all of them. Moreover, we could still avoid looking at some of our own shortcomings. Self-righteousness, that very thing that we had contemptuously condemned in others, was our own besetting evil. This phony form of respectability was our undoing, so far as faith was concerned, but finally driven to AA, we learned better. What did we learn? I don't know. What did I learn? I learned that I don't know if Jesus was a real person, and it doesn't matter. All of those stories in the Bible, both the Old Testament and the New Testament, the stories don't have to be real for some of the morals to be right. And that's how I transformed myself into somebody who can admire somebody else who subscribes to some of that stuff, so long as they're not beating anybody over the head with it, so long as they just don't think that their way is the only way. If they love and respect other people, then I'm with it. And if they don't, then they're part of what we just described here, that they're sitting there scared of somebody else because they believe something else. Yeah. So that's also my views on religion. Like, what do I know? AA, I guess, is my religion, even though it's not a religion. Spirituality, living by spiritual principles, which means not even, or trying my best to love other people who I do not agree with, who I do not like. Liberals, Republicans, conservatives, they all deserve a little bit of love, a little bit of understanding. There were people, I remember when I got sober, there was this girl who had come to my apartment, and she was friends with the woman I was seeing at the time that I was living with. And this girl, she was like, I am from Fayetteville, Georgia. I think that, she was like a model at one point or whatever. And at the time, and she's evolved, hopefully past some of this stuff now, but she was like a big deal Christian, even though she was, I guess, doing whatever, living outside of the Ten Commandments, if I want to say that nicely. Either way, she said that people who don't believe in Jesus are not going to go to heaven. That's what she believed. And as somebody in AA, and she was in AA, I said, wow, what spiritual principle is that? Do you think that's what God wants you to believe? That you're better than other people because you believe in Jesus that you don't even know? That you're just taking that by somebody's word? And now you're separate? Yeah, it was wild. I just laughed. I was like, okay. I said, well, look, if you're a real Christian, then I don't have to do any of that stuff. Because I'm a Hebrew. So I do not pass go. I get the easy pass straight up top. Yeah. I mean, I can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery, I think. Well, maybe they'll change the rules. I got a lot of tattoos and stuff on me, but that's okay. So, onward. As psychiatrists have often observed, defiance is the outstanding characteristic of many an alcoholic. So it's not strange that lots of us have had our day defying God himself. Sometimes it's because God has not delivered us the good things of life which we specified as a greedy child makes an impossible list for Santa Claus. What did I say before? Grant me my wishes. That God is, I'm going to rub the lamp. Right? More often, though, we had met up with some major calamity and to our way of thinking lost. Wait, 1 second. More often, though, we had met up with some major calamity and to our way of thinking lost out because God deserted us. Okay. The girl we wanted to marry had other notions. We prayed God that she'd change her mind, but she didn't. What did I say? Grant me my wishes, right? We prayed for healthy children, and we were presented with sick ones or none at all. We prayed for promotions at businesses, and none came. Loved ones, upon whom we heartily depended, were taken from us by so-called acts of God. Then we became drunkards and asked God to stop that, but nothing happened. This was the unkindest cut of all. Damn this faith business, we said. It's funny that that says that there. Then we became drunkards and asked God to stop that. Right? But nothing happened. Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. Here we are. Nothing happened, apparently, when some of them asked God to have them stop being a drunk, which is a little bit of a controversial statement, I guess, since this is a spiritual program. It's a little hypocritical. I don't want to say it's hypocritical, but who knows? Either way, God will show up when you're ready. If you're not ready, he's not just going to come. I think that's a good example. Now that I'm working through this as we're speaking, that's a good example of God is not going to do for you what you can do for yourself. So there's going to be a limitation of how far you got to open the door. He's there, but if you don't open the door, he's not going to open it for you. Maybe that's what that means. I don't know, but that's what it means to me. So I'm going to continue on. When we encountered AA, the fallacy of our defiance was revealed. At no time had we asked what's God's will for us. Instead, we had been telling him what it ought to be. No man we saw could believe in God and defy him too. Belief meant reliance, not defiance. In AA, we saw the fruits of this belief, men and women spared from alcohol's final catastrophe. We saw them meet and transcend their other pains and trials. We saw them calmly accept the impossible situations, seeking neither to run nor to recriminate. This was not only a faith, it was a faith that worked under all conditions. We soon concluded that whatever price in humility we must pay, we would pay. Yeah, accepting what God has in store for you, both good and bad. That's what the reliance is, not the defiance. It's from what they're saying, and I believe in that too. Yeah, things ain't always going to go the way I want. And typically, I almost never get what I want when I want it, but it comes when I need it. And I don't even know when I'm going to need it, but it always shows up. And I'm lucky. I'm lucky for that. Sincerely, and I'm grateful. Okay, let's continue on before I start crying or something. Psych. Okay, paying the price of humility. Yeah, that's the price. That's what you have to pay. That's the ticket to the show is humility. Okay, let's keep going. Now let's take the guy full of faith but still reeking of alcohol. He believes he is devout. His religious observance is scrupulous. That's the right word, scrupulous. He's sure he still believes in God, but suspects that God doesn't believe in him. He takes pledges and more pledges. Following each, he not only drinks again, but acts worse than the last time. Valiantly, he tries to fight alcohol, imploring God's help. But the help doesn't come. What then can be the matter? I guess this was what they were talking about in the previous paragraph. I've been sober a long time. And anybody who's been sober a long time and goes to a lot of literature meetings and lives this program and this way of life, we do not have any of this memorized at all. So that's why I'll be reading stuff and I'm like, where the hell did that come from? Because that's just that. For the people who really have it, I promise you, they'll tell you the same thing. For the people who don't have it, they'll cite this thing, chapter and verse and whatever, and on page whatever. Yeah, those are people that you should not put your faith in them. Either way. Okay, let's continue. To clergymen, doctors, friends, and families, the alcoholic who means well and tries hard is a heartbreaking riddle. To most AAs, he's not. these are people outside of AA. They're like, what's up with this guy? He keeps trying and he can't get it together. There are too many of us who have been just like him and who have found the riddle's answer. The answer has to do with the quality of his faith rather than its quantity. This has been our blind spot. We supposed we had humility when we hadn't. We suppose we had been serious about religious practices when, upon honest appraisal inventory, we found that we had only been superficial, or, going to the other extreme, we had wallowed in emotionalism and had mistaken it for true religious feeling. Wow. In both cases, we had been asking something for nothing. The fact was we really hadn't cleaned house so that the grace of God could enter us and expel the obsession. Cleaned house, do inventory, change who you are, answer those questions about yourself. All of those things that I talk about over and over, and that other people hopefully will continue to talk about. And that's our only way for freedom. It's doing that stuff. Okay. In no deep or meaningful sense had we ever taken stock of ourselves, made amends to those we had harmed, or freely given to any other human being without any demand for reward. That's a big deal. Making amends to those we had harmed. That's in the 9th step. We'll get there when we get there. Otherwise, I'll go off on a tangent right now about that kind of stuff. Oof. We had not even prayed rightly. I'm going to read that again. We had not even prayed rightly. We had always said, grant me my wishes instead of thy will be done. The love of God and man we understood not at all. Therefore, we remained self-deceived and so incapable of receiving enough grace to restore us to sanity. Bill is really swinging the axe hard now. These are sentences and paragraphs that are ringing true. It's pretty good. We're just coming to the end here. So, for indeed are the practicing of alcoholics who have any idea how irrational they are, or seeing their irrationality can bear to face it. Oh, few indeed are the practicing alcoholics who have any idea of how irrational they are. Means a little, only, yeah. Yeah, who knows how full of shit they are, basically is what they're saying. Or seeing their irrationality can bear to face it. Once they see it, once you see how full of shit you are about where your shit is at, how can you really face it? It's pretty tough stuff. Some will be willing to term themselves problem drinkers, but cannot endure the suggestion that they are in fact mentally ill. They are abetted in this blindness by a world which does not understand the difference between sane drinking and alcoholism. Sanity is described as soundness of mind. Sanity is defined as soundness of mind. Yet no alcoholic soberly analyzing his destructive behavior, whether the destruction fell on the dining room furniture or his own moral fiber, can claim soundness of mind for himself. Whoosh. All of that is true. Very, very true. Man, this is serious stuff. Therefore, step 2 is final thought. Therefore, step 2 is a rallying point for all of us. Whether agnostic, atheist, former believer, we can stand together on step 2. True humility and an open mind can lead us to faith. I'll say that again. True humility. Humility is being right-sized. And an open mind can lead us to faith. And every AA meeting is an assurance that God will restore us to sanity if we rightfully relate ourselves to Him. That's some powerful stuff. That's the end of step 2. Is it possible? I don't have all the information. And then once I get the information, what do? once I'm faced with the truth about who I am really, am I somebody who is practicing what I preach? That's people say that all the time. You got to practice what you preach. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. But where in my life am I falling short? Where in my life am I being unreasonable with other people? Yeah, that's the question that I'm asking myself now. Where in my life am I being unreasonable? If I'm a free man, and I say that with every ounce of my being. I am a free man. That means if you are in my life, I want you to be there. I want you to be there. So in that circle, however big it is, and it's pretty big, where am I being unreasonable with the people that I love, who are close to me? Where am I being resentful? Where am I being resentful because I'm afraid? Where am I just not being nice? I think that's what it boils down to. I remember one time I was speaking at my boy Mike the Beard, his anniversary, and I said that 12 steps are summed up as don't drink and don't be a dick. That's all 12 steps. I think that's true. Now, how do we be comfortable being nice? Without that little sense of superiority of the people who go to church, of all the people who, oh my God, when I see them on social media, I need prayer warriors because A, B, C, X, Y, Z. How do I stop myself? And I do, from saying, like, you are rubbing the lamp. We do not know if your family member is going to get that job. Or if it's something more serious, if somebody's sick, we don't know if they're going to get better. We know that we don't want you to be in pain. I know that. So when all of the prayer warriors hit me up, or just in my mind they're hitting me up. If it's on my feed, that means you're hitting me up. But no, they're just asking for help, And really the only prayer that I send anybody is that they are in acceptance of whatever happens. Because whatever happens is God's will in those situations. So, as long as they're in acceptance, they're going to be okay. And if they're not, they're going to suffer. And I know because that's how it works for me. I'm suffering when I'm trying to control what I believe is supposed to be going on in my life. Now, I'm responsible for taking actions and those kinds of things. That is in my control. God's not going to get you sober on your couch. You got to get the fuck up and come to a meeting. And then once you're at the meeting, you got to let us help you, which means maybe you got to take some phone numbers. Maybe you got to let us buy you a burger. It means a lot of things. It does. Yeah, but yeah, so like I always say before, you and God in a boat, you row, God steers. That's how it goes. But I can close out by just saying that step 2, all of these glorious things start with that little opening of the door. Like, is it possible? And then it blows out into all of this other, the love song that I live with me and God every day. In my home, on this earth, with people. And I'm not perfect. When I fall out of the grace, I know. Because I'm like, oh, my dad's crazy. My mom is My mom's rice isn't what it used to be. What the fuck is going on with them? Like, I get into that kind of stuff instead of just like, hey, man, they're just getting old. And that's that. And that's okay. And I can just love them how they are. So on that note, keep tuning in. Thank you so much for everybody who shares and reposts the episodes. All the DMs and that kind of stuff that I get that's saying that, this is really helping them and they really love it. It touches my heart 100%. And I know that that's the main thing, is how can we help other people? That's why there's no cameras. This is just content of people sharing their stories and trying to help and love everybody else. We don't need all of the accolades because we already believe we're the greatest. Thanks, everybody. Bye.